In 1999, Morpheus offered Neo a choice between a red pill and a blue pill. In 2018, this country fractured between red and blue. In 2022, I'm here to tell you that if you really want the truth, more voters are neither red or blue. Yet, they have no representation, no choice, and no options. They have to choose between candidates chosen by the red people or the blue people. I'm David Esrati, and I'm running for Congress as an American, as in red, white, and blue. I'm a veteran, an activist, and a small businessman. I'm asking you to join me in reminding the professional politicians in Congress who their bosses are. I support ranked choice voting, campaign finance reform, and a verified voter information system, all so we can stop having the best politicians money can buy. It's time to elect a veteran who will work for you, no matter what color they want to label you. Please go to electesrati.com and learn more. I'm David Esrati, and I approve this message. In Jurassic Park, you thought those little baby dinosaurs were cute until they turned into out-of-control carnivores. That's sort of what happens to government when we elect people based on very expensive advertising campaigns and propaganda. I'm David Esrati. I'm a veteran and a small businessman running for Congress. You don't want professional ad people and pollsters to sway your vote. All those hot-button issues like gun control, abortion, borders are all politicized to stop you from voting rationally. And thinking rationally seems to be in short supply these days. Most Americans have been voting against their own best self-interest for a long time because we've allowed money to buy our leaders. 1 million Americans died in the last 2 years because our leaders couldn't lead. It wasn't that hard. Mask, distance, test, and then vaccinate. In an instant, we had billions to spend on healthcare for COVID, when for years we've been told we can't provide healthcare for everyone equally in this country. That's an unintended consequence of the pandemic. If you think about it, our government can pretty much do whatever it wants, or what the people who buy our politicians tell our leaders to do. We also had a ton of money to prop up businesses. The next thing you know, it turns out that a living wage was not only possible, but necessary. As a small businessman who won't sell you out to corporate interests and lobbyists, I can tell you that it's time to fully understand the consequences of companies like Amazon, Facebook, and Google and their effect on small business, and to remind you that small business is the #1 creator of jobs in this country. So this next election, don't trust this ad or any other political ad. Do your homework and think before you vote. It's time to put this ad man in Congress because I know that the best advertising is based on the truth, not the size of the budget or payola. Or you can just vote based on who has the money to buy their way into Congress and live with the consequences. I'm David Esrati, and I approve this message. Hi, I'm David Esrati, and I'm running for Congress. And I'm running in OH-10, which is now all of Montgomery County, all of Greene County, and parts of Clark County. Apparently that's news to some people in the district because they're going to the ballot and seeing people they don't recognize and wondering what the hell's going on. That was the story in the Dayton Daily News today. That they managed to get my name in there, but they haven't written a whole lot about this race. Nobody's offered to host a debate, and Mike Turner won't debate, and Mike Turner doesn't show up anywhere. So that's what happens. So today I went to school. This was arranged over a week ago. It was going to be me and Leronda Jackson, who were going to appear at Meadowdale High School. And the teacher had worked very hard to organize this and get everything set. Got there on time, waiting. 25 minutes goes by after 2, and they come out and say, well, sorry, somebody downtown said you can't do this because you don't have a Republican there. Well, they were invited. They just don't show up. They don't care about talking to their constituents. Phil Plummer didn't come. The GOP party didn't send anybody. And Mike Turner never shows up. So we started heading out. Leronda and I walking out. And then all of a sudden they come, oh, wait, there's been a change. Of course, now the cafeteria where we were supposed to be with all these students is taken up by guys who want to go out for basketball. So we end up in the library instead. Sight lines were kind of bad. And we'd already burned through at least a half hour. And off we go. And I got to tell you something. You adults ought to take a lesson from these kids. I have the long list of questions that were prepared. We were asked a few. One was what to do about public education. For a state rep, that's a great topic. I mean, Ohio has been operating under an unconstitutional funding system since 2019, and nobody does anything. Same thing as gerrymandered districts. Nobody does anything. Republicans don't care. They just thumb their nose at the law and say, let's go. The second question was a doozy. What do you do about child abuse? And that's a really loaded question and a very big one. And you'll see my response on the video when I get that uploaded. And I'm not going to cover it again here. I don't think I did the best job possible because it was that's a big question. I mean, it comes down to one is we need health care for all. I mean, your congressman shouldn't have a better health care plan than you do. And it shouldn't also take two parents working two jobs to keep a roof over your head. We need to figure out a way that people can afford to take care of the kids they have and feel safe about it. I believe strongly it takes a village to raise a child. I've seen a huge change in my neighborhood. As we've gotten younger people moving in here and people having kids, used to be they'd move out when their kids hit 5, they'd move out. Now, thanks to one guy, his name's Philip Newman, he's a superstar. He's our director of fun for the neighborhood. He has set up our little park down the street, Baumel Park, with all kinds of stuff. I donated some soccer balls. I donated some other stuff, and he set up volleyball courts. He's got badminton sets. He's got all this stuff out there. And parents come down there with their kids, and we have a community. We're getting away from sitting behind our screens. We're getting out and being with people, something that didn't happen a lot during the pandemic. But, I mean, child abuse has been going on for a long time, even in my idyllic neighborhood of Cleveland Heights back in the late 70s. The truth comes out now that some of the girls that I knew and, thought I liked or were friends with then, or maybe one that even got in a fight with me, Virginia, you know who you are, turns out they were getting molested at home. And nothing was done. Back then it was keep it quiet. Now I don't know what would happen, but those scars last a lifetime. And we have to do better. We have to make sure that our citizens are protected. This is part of national security. We're not stronger by having F-22s. We're stronger by making sure that every kid is safe. And I feel strongly about that. But I'm going to run down some of these questions, as many as I can do right now. You're a veteran. How difficult was it being in Special Forces? Okay, clarification. I didn't make it through the Special Forces qualification course. I boloed out at the end of phase 1. Self-did it. My own fault. Bad career choice. But I stayed in Special Forces units. And I'm going to tell you, I was working with some really smart people. I served on a team in the reserve unit, even though I wasn't Special Forces qualified. And it's a lot of work. It's tough. I am airborne qualified. I am 05 Bravo 1 Alpha 4 Papa. But no, I never got a flash. I will tell you, military medicine makes mistakes, and they can have long-term implications. And for that, I know that all healthcare systems make mistakes. And it's something I've had to deal with for a long time after. Next question. You mentioned problems like gerrymandering, polarization, and complete lack of voter confidence. When will these problems get fixed? Probably when we get the election deniers out of Congress, when we stop letting Donald Trump run his mouth, about the elections being rigged, which they weren't, and we get back to actually running a government for and by the people. Why did he run for commission? What made him want to run for commission? I actually covered that briefly in my intro, where I talked about that I bought a house for $14,500, put a new garage doors up, was taken to court by the city, and had to fight to be heard. Why does he like ninjas, and what made him start liking ninjas? That all goes back to the lawsuit where I was arrested for wearing a ninja mask. That story's been well told. And it wasn't really a ninja mask. It was a balaclava. It was one I had from the military. But what the deal is here, I was protesting a illegal secret meeting of the Dayton City Commission where they discussed ways to eliminate citizen participation at the meeting, and I was doing it silently, symbolically. Mike Turner didn't know the difference. He's the one that gave me the ninja name, and I've worn it proudly. Has nothing to do with the other N-word or anything else. What is your plan to help Dayton get back on its feet, to help homeless people who don't have a place to go or have problems going on? I'm running for federal office. This is more couched in local terms. But one of the things I find absolutely insane is that we do not allow what's called single room occupancy, which means that you can rent a room. You don't have to rent a whole house. You don't have to rent an apartment. You can do it week to week. You can do it where they provide furniture and change the sheets, and all you really need is the clothes on your back, your possessions, and you can move in. Single room occupancy was the norm for soldiers coming back from World War II. In fact, the building I'm in, at one point, right now, the old corner grocery, had added on 3 apartments after the war so that they could have places for those soldiers coming back. I believe single room occupancy, tiny houses, some of these other options, more multifamily housing units, shared co-housing environments are needed to have a transitional step from homelessness to homed. I don't think shelters are the answer. Anyway, what is your plan for addressing child abuse? That was the question. And there are lots of things, but I think first and all is healthcare for all. How do you plan on doing to help this country out, and what do you plan to do with the education system? Well, the feds don't really mix up with the education system, and Donald Trump destroyed the Department of Education when he put Betsy DeVos in charge. I don't believe in charter schools or charter school funding or any of the rest of that. I think we need to move to a more robust public school system. I, in fact, would offer federal incentives to schools that go to year-round schools and go to a full school day from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, with only half of that being used for instruction, educational instruction. The rest of the time would be used for other things, extracurriculars, teacher planning periods, all the rest of it. I think it's a model we need to move to. The agrarian society timetable doesn't work in a modern society, and especially with the loss of the setbacks we had during COVID, we need to get back on track and bring our educational system to be one of the best in the world. It is not. What do you plan on doing with equal rights? How are you going to fix all the hate? How will you help us? So the Equal Rights Amendment keeps getting voted down because of a few small minor states that can't seem to get their heads out of their butts. I don't know that we can fix this through the standard constitutional amendment route, but I think the Equal Rights Amendment is long past due, and my solution, I've talked about this before, is if you don't have enough people to elect 2 representatives to Congress, you don't get 2 senators, and we start moving in that direction. We also make sure that everybody is represented, from the people in D.C. to the people in the territories, including Guam and Puerto Rico. We might be able to move forward if we give those people representation. What made you run for commission? I already talked about. Why does he like ninjas? Again, what would you change about the way we make decisions in our democracy? This is where I'm going to talk about ranked choice voting, eliminating the 2-party structure, creating a donor registration system and a voter information system, and getting rid of all the money in politics. I think that would be a huge difference. Also, I'd want to move Election Day away from the fourth quarter into July 4th, celebration of our independence. All right. Here you say your home should never be treated like a share of stock by a bank. An American has the right to own their home without being taxed out of it or thrown out of it by the sheriff. We need foreclosure reform in addition to lending reform. When you say an American has a right to own their home, what about other ethnicities that moved to America? When I say Americans, I mean people who live in America. I do not make the distinction between those with green cards, those with visas, but I believe that Americans, people who live here, should be able to afford and be able to buy a home. And our banks have a lot of answers to do when it comes to what they've done with redlining and making homes accessible. We need a better system for home ownership, especially for low-income homes. We need more sustainable new homes being built. We need to get away from McMansions and huge planned developments. I see I got a couple questions. I can't wait for you to get to Congress. We need you in the halls of power. Well, thank you, official Little Silver. I appreciate that. All right, these questions are really good, so I'm going to keep going. So again, your home should never be treated like a share of stock by a bank. The banks own your home. Even once you pay it off, then the question is about the valuation for taxation. I believe the valuation of your home is set on the day you buy it, and it will be set again on the day you sell it. In between personal residence, your taxes cannot be changed based on the valuation of your home unless there's been a natural disaster that's destroyed it and you have to rebuild it, and you rebuild it with something different. That's pretty simple. I see you were born in Cleveland, Ohio. Wrong. I was born in Saline, Ohio. How did it feel to have your own site about Dayton Little Secrets? What's the dirtiest secret you'd uncovered in Dayton? Okay, so I grew up in Cleveland. I was not born there. How does it feel to have my site about Dayton's Little Secrets? That's, I imagine, is right.com. And what is the dirtiest secret I covered in Dayton? I really think the story about Dr. Adil Bagirov not living in the school district that he was on the school board for, and how he committed voter fraud, I think the whole thing and how he got involved in contracts is an amazing story, and one that never got the press it should have. The fact that I forced him into resigning on Election Day was something, but not really enough, and he was never made to pay. If I committed election fraud like he did, saying I've lived somewhere else, and if I was in office and said I lived somewhere else, I'd be in deep doo-doo. Close second is everything to do with the Montgomery County Democratic Party's undemocratic processes, including how they have a bunch of people who are working for the elected officials, then selecting who the next elected officials will be. That shit's got to stop. But those are dirty little secrets that a lot more people know about now. All right. What are your plans for getting equal rights? We talked about that. Why do you take your dog to work with you every day? Because dogs are awesome. And I'm not the only one in this office that brings my dog to work. I have 2 other employees that bring their dogs to work. We usually have 3 dogs here. Sometimes we have 4 dogs here. On occasion, there have been 5 dogs here. Dogs in the office are good. You wish you could work in a job where your dog was with you. My dogs live to be 17 years old because they are with me all the time. In fact, that's the thing. I haven't quite figured out what's going to happen. If I have to go to D.C. for 4 days a week, I am going to miss George a whole lot, and he's going to miss me. So what we plan to make healthcare more affordable for everyone? Real simple. We get rid of the insurance companies and we go to single payer and move forward. I talked about that in the meeting. What's your plan to enforce Paycheck Fairness Act enforcement? How are you going to fight for sexual assault and sexual violence protection? Why do you feel like you would be a good leader for women's issues? That's a whole bunch of stuff packed into one question. Basically, I believe women have rights. That's more than my opponent does. And I believe that this country has been unfair in lots of ways, to minorities, to women, and we have some serious problems with overpaying people who don't deserve it. I believe that we can start reeling in some of the inequality in this country by making sure that we don't give government contracts or pay for services to hospitals, to doctors, to companies that make stuff for airports, anything. We shouldn't pay them unless their employees make no less than, the employees make at least, that the CEO doesn't make more than 20 times what their average employee makes. If you pay yourself that much more money, you can give us a discount or do business with someone else. We are not going to keep making CEOs rich with our tax dollars. End of story. How about that? What statement were you trying to make when you dressed up as a ninja and went to council meetings? That you will hear from me even if you don't have to see my face was the gist of it. And they did hear from me. And the paper got the story wrong the first day, but they got it right the second day. But it took a couple years, and Turner obviously got the mic a lot more and got to somehow project that I was some sort of threat to him and a ninja and scared the living daylights out of him. That's a personal problem, Mikey. I thought you were a second-degree black belt. You should feel a little more safe and secure knowing that you can defend yourself, but apparently not. Anyways, you said being rich and white will no longer be a get-out-of-jail-free card. So you agree that the system is unfair. Why do you think our system is unfair? Okay, if I did half the shit Donald Trump did, I'd be in prison. If anybody at Wright Pat took top-secret SCI documents home, they'd be in prison. Donald Trump gets away with everything. He used to brag that he could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and nobody would do anything. And he's basically been proven right. All the bankers that crashed the economy in 2009, none of them went to prison. The people who lost $130 million at Wright State, all of them white, none of them went to prison. Joey Williams takes a $40,000 kickback building a patio and he goes to prison. Something is wrong here, folks. We need to fix that. How did the idea of fixing up basketball hoops come to mind? How do you think it has had an impact? I hate political yard signs. I detest them. They cost a couple bucks each. I saw this condition of the basketball courts and I wanted to make a difference. So instead of putting yard signs out, I put up basketball nets. And I cleaned up courts, taking out the weeds, the trees that were growing in the middles of some of them. And I invested my time and my energy in the neighborhood because I thought it was important that kids have a good place to play. And how did it have an effect? After I lost the election, the city got embarrassed and spent $1 million fixing up the courts. And they put an edict out that no green nets would ever appear on a city court or somebody would get fired. So now all the city courts have nets on them. They're not my green nets, but they're nets. I still end up putting nets up at Dayton Public Schools courts because Libby Lawley, Rhonda Kaur, the school board, none of them thought it was worth paying me $5 a net to come out there and put them up on their janky rims and take care of things. They are horrible custodians of our children's basketball courts and should be ashamed of themselves. First and foremost, you have a basketball rim, you put a net on it. You also clean the court up, okay? No broken glass on it. And if you have one of those stupid rims that was built for chains, you take it down and you put a standard hoop up. This isn't that hard. Okay. You mentioned that you want mandatory public service in exchange for 2 years of college paid for. Can you say more about that? What would you be forced to go into college even if you don't have a plan in mind? Would you have have a chosen college, or would it be you picking? Oh, it'd definitely be you picking any college you want, or trade school, or any other endeavor that's going to take 2 years to learn a skill or a trade. Do you have to take it right away? No. If you want to take a gap year or 2 years and go do something else or volunteer some more or any of those things, those are possibilities. Careers are possible doing public service, and I'd like to see more of those, and I'd like to work on that. I believe that all of us would learn from going and working out in the community and getting paid to do it. And I think it's absolutely imperative that we have a bunch of young people ready to take care of our old people, because our old people did all this for the young people to inherit. And we got to pay it back. Talk about your lawsuit on your website. Well, first problem, which lawsuit? And how you settled for peace of mind. What do you mean by that when you said you settled for peace of mind? I'm going to assume this was the library lawsuit, because I settled that one because, one, I couldn't get the proper tapes out of the library, which was all because Judge Gerald Parker is an idiot or a crook or both. And I had to work with non-standard files because he refused to hold them accountable. He also refused to pay for my attorney, even though I'd won the case. That's why Gerald Parker is not on my list of favorite people, and why this electing judges for life thing is bullshit. Every judge should be challenged every time unless they are an amazing judge. That's one of the things the political parties worked on together, and it's one of the things that I've been fighting against all along. You have plans for other higher education on your website. We do not see anything about high school students. Do you have any plans on public schools or schools for people our age? Well, actually, I did a whole video on how to fix Dayton public schools a long time ago. And it is there for you to see. It's about 8 minutes long. It talks about switching to year-round schools. It talks about how we bus kids. I believe that our schools are set up entirely wrong. I don't believe that summer vacation should match an agrarian work calendar. I think we should have teachers working year-round, 9 to 5, just like everybody else. If they coach and there's evening things, then they end up getting time off during the day. We work these things out, but there are better ways to run our schools, and I think we need to improve them. If you want to see that video, I am drawing a blank on the title that I used for that video, but if you search in this stream, you should see it there. It says, if he is running for representative, he ask for our opinions for some questions. Hey, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm asking for input every time I go live. I plan on continuing this once I'm elected. Every day I'll tell you what happened in Congress, what I did, how I voted, what's coming up, get your input. I believe in being an elected representative. So, how did you feel when you first got into it with Scatia, and how do you think you could have changed or impacted the situation? It says with Scacia's. I imagine that John Scatia, that was the lawyer for the city. I had an amazing lawyer. His name was Dana Cole. He took on John Scatia. He made John Scatia look like a fool. In fact, the Judge Dan Garris, even got frustrated with Scatia and scolded him for speaking to the judge instead of to the court, talking to the courtroom instead of the judge. But that's the best there. How will you show special interest in lobbyists you will not be owned? Pretty simple. I won't take their money. I won't talk to them. Don't take their money. I am working for the people, not for special interests, not for the billionaires. Why have you run for so many positions but have lost in many elections, and what have you learned from your past losses? Well, I've learned an awful lot about running campaigns, and I'm going to tell you straight up, I am horrible about asking for help. I don't do a good job of asking people to help me when I need help. I try to take everything on my own and do it myself, and that's not a good model. I've run a whole bunch of times for only 3 positions. I ran for mayor the very first time. I've run for city commission multiple times, and I've run for Congress. I've not won because I am bad about asking for money. I also have to fight a system where I have had zero support from the party and the news media, which for a long time was in bed with the local party establishment. In fact, Judge Langer, who was one of those judges for life, his wife was Ellen Belcher, who was the editorial page editor for the Dayton Daily News. They were in there nice, tight, and cozy. They liked to kiss each other's butts. I don't kiss butt. But I've also confronted people, and sometimes I say things that people normally wouldn't say. I've worked on other campaigns in the past, and some of those people have won. I've come to understand the data side of things better. I understand what's important, what's a good use of my time, what's not a good use of my time. And I also know, again, that the system has to be fair in at least the way that the district isn't already gerrymandered for Republicans to win, which is what I'm in. So I understand I'm a sacrificial lamb this time. And unless a whole bunch of pissed off women go out and vote and say we're sick of having Republicans put laws on our bodies, I'm toast. But if all the women come out and are pissed and they vote D, and a whole bunch of other people watch that insurrection on January 6th and are afraid for the future of their country and don't want somebody that's making excuses for Donald Trump in office, I might win. I'm not counting my chickens. I'm not putting any eggs in my basket. I worked as hard as I can. I go to bed tired every night. I wake up in the morning trying to figure out new ways to reach out. I've got a new commercial coming up that's going to be pretty good. I'm hoping that you people will share and spread it on social media because I don't have the money to buy the ads. I'm very thankful to the Republican Party for sending out a mailing telling everybody that I was not endorsed. That was helpful, but I've learned a lot. I guarantee you 2 years from now, once the district gets fixed and we run again, Mike Turner's toast. But let's see how we do this time, because it might be me defending. But I think I'll keep winning, because once I'm in office and people see that they actually can ask questions or talk to their representatives, they learn a new way and they expect better. All right. What is the most important thing when it comes to healthcare to you? Well, first off, that we stop using prisons for mental health facilities. We need mental health care in this country in the worst way. And we need mental health care facilities that are progressive, new, and open. I take care of a 100% service disabled veteran who suffers from severe mental illness. And I can tell you that the number one thing he misses when he's in most mental health wards is fresh air. Now, some of the facilities like Summit down in Cincinnati, you have the ability to be an inmate there and get out and get fresh air. But at the VA here in Dayton, you do not. And it's painful, and it shouldn't be that way. So I would like to see mental health care move way up on the scale. I'd like to stop seeing drug addiction treated as a crime and treated as a health care issue. I would like to see medically assisted treatment for addiction become commonplace and not have a stigma. I would like to see all those things happen. But first off, we've got to take the money out of healthcare, and especially by going after these drug companies that are charging ungodly amounts of money for insulin and for vaccines that we invested billions in, and now they're getting rich. I'm sorry. No, you can make some good money, but you can't keep piling it in. And I'm really concerned about these patents that are being filed on psychedelics before they're even legal. Because, look, you didn't invent the mushroom, you don't get to patent it, okay? So let's move on and let's start treating people, because if we can make huge strides against severe depression, we will be a much better country. What is the hardest topic to come up with a solution for? That's a really good question. And it's the question that I didn't want to have to answer when I started this campaign. I didn't want to talk about gun control. I have very strong feelings about gun control. Americans like to say, you can take my gun when you pry it out of my cold, dead fingers. It's a God-given right. It's in the Constitution. No, it's not. As somebody who is in a well-regulated militia, I believe in well-regulated militias. I believe if you're going to carry a gun, you better be in a uniform. That's a well-regulated militia. You better be with somebody else. We have a check and balance system. You have your weapons stored in a guarded armory. These aren't something to just be left around your home or in your trunk of your car, like the former police chief of Dayton who lost his service pistol. No, that's not okay. We got way too many guns, way too many people thinking they're cowboys and thinking this is the Wild West. And with 40 school shootings this year already, I was just in a school. I shouldn't have to worry about getting shot in a school, and neither should those kids. We are going to fix this. And if we're going to end up having a civil war over it, we're going to have a civil war over it. But I guarantee you the military is going to take your little pop guns and decimate you. So, before you think you're going to rule the government with an AR-15, even on full auto, wait till you meet an Apache helicopter. Stupid people are the enemy. Remember that. And it can be cured. Stupidity is a curable-ish disease, okay? All right. What would you do differently to win this time that you did not do in the past? Well, I raised a lot more money than I have in the past. I spent it mostly on digital techniques to reach out and engage people and get them informed. I have been very clear about what my positions are and what makes me different. And I have tried to build relationships with other organizations that can help me out. We will see. I hadn't planned to run this time until I saw the other two candidates that had taken out petitions and was worried they wouldn't do anything. And I was right. And that's why I won. I was chosen to be the choice because I can do something to Mike Turner that no one else can do. I can annoy him. And that's why they sent out a mailer to all the Democrats last week. That wouldn't have happened with other candidates. So, what else do they waste tax dollars on that we might not know about? Oh my God. We could talk for months about that. Our tax dollars are squandered on things that we don't need. We have systems in place that are inefficient. You can watch yesterday's video talking about the user interface of government and how we could do things to streamline things to make things so much more affordable. But face it, basically, we pay a lot of taxes. We don't pay squat compared to other developed countries, but they get health care. They also get a government that responds to them. They get free education. They get a whole bunch of things we don't get because all we do here is make more billionaires and make the billionaires we have more money. We got to fix that. Income inequality, Bernie was on it. I'm on it. We got to fix that. So, we can be a lot more efficient with a lot of things. Does your education plan include improving school lunches? Hell yeah! Pizza every day. Good pizza. No. I really believe in local food, and I believe every school should have hydroponics labs and be growing some of their own food and raising their own food so they know how food is made. We need to get away from processed foods. We need to get away from cheap calories. We need to understand what quality food is if we ever want to get a grip on how many people we have that become diabetics. For your 12 plan, I don't think it's fair to force people to do things that don't go against free will. I don't know what that meant. TN's not here to answer, but that's all the questions I had on this list that was provided to me. And I hope that's all of them. But if there are more, I enjoyed it. Kids ask good questions. I just wish we hadn't wasted half an hour today standing around waiting for somebody downtown to figure things out for themselves. Manny G, you should still call in the Majority Report. They have a huge audience and can be a force multiplier for you. I will put a call into the Majority Report.
Sam Cedar.
I don't know who Sam Cedar is.
Sam Cedar's Majority Report. That's who he's talking about.
Okay.
He's great.
Joseph says he's great. So we'll get on that. Thank you very much for that recommendation, Manny G. And thank you to those of you who've watched today. I hope the connection was good. We had a little error in the beginning. We're still working things out. The closing of the Crown Plaza, or whatever they're calling it now, is causing problems for one of our internet providers, and so we're a little delayed on getting our new radio, but we should have been good. Still need donations. Still have t-shirts, still have hats. Remember, any donation you get eligible to win a Shepard Fairey poster signed. Shepard Fairey is the one guy who did those big posters for Obama. The red and blue ones, you know the ones. Very famous, will be very valuable one day. Hey, you can win one. Also, pancake breakfast this Saturday, 113 Bonner Street, 9:30 a.m. until 1:30 p.m. Pancakes, orange juice, coffee, real maple syrup, unsalted sweet butter, and no pork. Because if you want pork, you get that from Mike Turner. So come on down, make a donation, eat all you want, and try not to spill maple syrup on my carpet, although George will probably love you for that. So you can come meet my dog. Again, that's under the events calendar on my site, Elect Esrati. And again, we can still use donations. We still got great T-shirts like the defund politicians, and we are ready to go. And we could use your help going door to door, talking to voters and hanging door hangers and handing out hot cards and all that. So if you want to do that, get in touch with the campaign by calling the number on the website, 937-985-1312. And that's it for today. We'll see you again tomorrow at 4 for another live stream town hall from the candidate who talks to you, not for you. That would be Michael Turner. Don't vote for him. We'll see you tomorrow.